So this is my original.
Danny, wait a second, man. Let me introduce you. This is Danny Aridi, Universal Music Artist. And damn, man, Mr. Dreamy himself. He loves wearing leather.
Danny, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate having you here.
Thanks
welcome.
for having me.
Yeah, it's a big moment for us. I really appreciate you taking the time to come sit down with us. Talk to me a little bit. Just to get right into it, I kind of want to ask you. Growing up here in the UAE, going to school here, how did you get into music in the first place? I think a lot of people wonder how someone can go from going to high school in Dubai to being signed to Universal Music. So take me a little bit through that journey.
Sure. It's kind of a similar story where I was studying international business after I finished high school here. I went to Canada and I was doing business and marketing and things like that. My parents were saying, you have to get a degree, you have to, get into the business side of things. And I was quite good at that. I wasn't like an A+ student. I was more on the C, just in the middle ground. But yeah. But my mind was always on music and arts and entertainment. And I remember on the drive to school, on the school bus and things, I'd have my head out the window and I'd just be visualizing like concerts and things, and which is kind of crazy because at the time I was a very quiet kid. I sat at the back of the class. I wasn't very talkative. I wouldn't participate very much. I'd keep very much internal, like to myself. But I knew that I loved music and I loved the idea of performing, and that was something that was always, special for me. So after university, I went into hospitality and went into the business side of things, the 9-to-5 typical job. Wore a suit every day. So that was really nice, and I learned a lot from all of that. But I had a moment where I looked at myself and I was like, I never truly gave music 100%. I never really gave it my all.
So you wanted to find out?
Exactly, because I knew I'd live and I'd regret that, and I'd rather regret starting something and failing than not starting at all. So I kind of left everything and I jumped into it. There were a couple of different music competitions in the region here. Yeah, I sort of took a step and I entered into all these different music competitions. Ended up winning one of them between like 450 participants, and then that gave me the affirmation and I guess reassurance that I've got something going here.
You have the ability to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then started doing music full time ever since.
Okay, and I wonder because you don't necessarily see a lot of people come out of Dubai doing it, and I think that you're a really strong representation of what someone can achieve here if they really put their 100% into their craft. And obviously, you're still even growing to this day. What kind of steps do you think someone should take if they want to become, that full-time musician within this region?
Right, so that's a really good question. I'd say, first of all, as like a warning, it's not for everyone. It's not an easy thing. There's a lot of uncertainty there. And you have to personally be okay with jumping into the unknown, and because it's not a stable thing at all. What 100%. We do is very seasonal, spontaneous, and it depends on multiple factors and things. I would say just be really true to yourself and your craft. I'd say just be true to yourself and know what you bring to the table and what your strengths are and what you like. The type of music that I create right now is not the general consensus. It's not what you typically hear on the radio, but I'm okay with that, and I'm comfortable with my niche, and I know the people that support my music are there through thick and thin, and I think that's really important because a lot of the times people focus so much on the outside and what the public wants to hear, what that person is doing. But I think if you look inwards and be like, what do I want to do? At the end of the day, you want to create a piece of art, a legacy, 100%. Leave something behind that you're proud of, that your family's proud of.
It's your legacy.
Exactly. And if people like that, great. And if they don't, that's fine. You'll find people that do like that and that support you. But if you create stuff for others and you're worried about like what everyone thinks or what is popular right now, I think that's a very dangerous mentality because let's say you release something that isn't necessarily your favorite work or your true representation of you, and then that gets really, really popular. all right, cool, there's some success, but now that's your expectation.
100%.
And if that is not what you're comfortable and happy with, then that's a problem. So you're better off, really find something that you really, really love to do that comes easy to you, that is your passion, but is also your kind of like your ikigai, right? It's like what the world needs, what you're good at, what you can get paid for.
You love.
Exactly. And a combination of that thing creates a sort of a sustainable thing where, if it's something that you love but you can't profit out of it and that the world can't benefit from, then it's not really
It's
a
all
healthy.
right for you.
Yeah,
You got to kind of find your own path. And
exactly.
that's something that you probably worked really hard to find yourself. Was your family like, because the Arab culture, right? Growing up in the Middle East and coming from an Arab family,
Right.
Like you said, you were studying international business, you were working in hospitality, you're wearing a suit
Right.
every day, and I'm sure your parents were like, you got to get a degree, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's not necessarily the main thing that they're going to be in their head when you tell them, hey, mom, dad, I'm going to become a musician, I'm going to do this full time.
Right.
When you think of the typical Arab family, they're not completely supportive of that. But with you, what was that experience like for you? Was your
Right.
family behind you?
Well,
or?
I mean, it's interesting. It is, a typical sort of thought. But I mean, in my family, like they hadn't, my parents hadn't went to a university, so for them it was really important for me to just get a degree, have something to fall back on just in case. And I got that degree, and in the business world, and a lot of what I attribute to my success is just building relationships with people. Once you are professional and you are punctual and all these sort of things, no matter what field you in, people take notice of that, and then that gives you, adds to your success and things. So for me, it was important to just get that degree, and then obviously everyone advised me against it. But once my family saw that I was good at it and getting some support and able to kind of sustain myself, then obviously they support me, and now they're very proud and they support me through everything I do.
Oh, sure.
But even friends of mine and their families and things, like if you tell them I want to be a musician full time, you'll hear a million no's, like what are you doing? Like
100%.
the chances of you being successful and all that. So I've heard it all, and but to be honest, I didn't necessarily need someone to kind of hype me up or something. It was just an internal desire, like at least I want to prove to myself that I can do this,
Yeah, you kind of pushed yourself. You said, this is something I want to do,
Right.
and regardless of what anyone says, I'm going to prove that I can do it.
Yeah.
Which I think is an extremely big, characteristic that someone who wants to achieve something, no matter what it is, needs to have. You need to have that ability that, any doubt that you may have in yourself, you need to want to prove yourself wrong.
100%.
You were talking about how when you were in school, you were quieter in class, you weren't really participating. And even now, you talk probably a lot more than you used to, but you're still, a more soft-spoken person. Even now when you're talking, you're a little more quiet. And I think that that's important. I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago about how the quietest people are the people that you should listen to the most, because they always have something to say, but they don't say it. So when they do speak, always be listening. Would you say that music lets you express yourself more than speaking could?
Yeah, I think definitely at the time, when I was 15, when I picked up a guitar, and at that time, expressing myself was quite kind of difficult. I kept to myself. I was, just very introverted and all that. And obviously, my personality has changed. I've developed, but music was a big part of that, because obviously songs hold so much emotion. If you're listening to a song that hypes you up before like a gym session, or like you've just had a heartbreak or something, and you're listening to a sad song, there's a song for every emotion, every mood that you're in. Someone has experienced it, has written it into poetry, has produced a beautiful sound behind it, and now you can relate to that. And then you can create stuff that other people can relate to. It's beautiful. So I thought music was a big sort of step for me in helping to express myself. And the thought of maybe doing a presentation in front of class or in front of a camera or something like that used to scare me. You'd get like sweaty palms and start shaking. And obviously it changed, performing in front of 15,000 people, 10,000, and now it's like second nature to me. And if I had told my younger self that, I'd be like, no, get out of here.
No way,
you're messing with
absolutely
me.
not.
Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy.
I want to ask a little bit, who are your inspirations? You know, like whether it be family members, whether it be actual huge artists in the world, or maybe artists in the community here in the UAE, who kind of inspired you to get to do what you do? Because, you know, your music in itself it's beautiful, first of all. You know, I love the music that you create, but it's categorized as indie music. Sometimes it can be categorized as pop, it can be categorized as different things, right? What do you categorize your music as, and what inspiration do you take from other people, or would you say it's more just you?
So I grew up in a very open-minded musical, cultural environment. You know, I listened to everything from Tupac and Biggie to like Aerosmith and Iron Maiden to Jack Johnson, John Mayer, to Amy Winehouse, Ray Charles, you know. So we had like a very eclectic playlist, and Fairuz at home, you know, like Arabic as well.
In the morning, always, huh?
Exactly, in the morning. So I was lucky to be in that sort of space where you're just exposed to so many different genres, and I think it really helps you. And as a person in the music industry, it's fine to have a specialty and to specialize in your genre and your craft, but you have to have an open mind and listen to a variety of songs, because there's so much like you can learn. Even from, I'm sure you've seen some movies where there's just instrumental tracks that just bring it to life, or that invoke some sort of emotion, you know? And I think keeping an open mind, learning from these, and you see great artists, whether it's a rapper who takes like an instrumental sample from like Bach or Beethoven and puts it into the mainstream. People don't know where that's from, but he's listened to some classical music, drew inspiration from that, and now it's something beautiful, you know? So I think there's a lot of that influence from so many different artists. Personally, I get a lot of my drive from, you know, my father. He's someone who really inspired like work ethic. He came from literally nothing, you know,
100%.
and managed to make something of himself. So hard work is something I learned from him. From my mom's side, it's more, you know, the emotional side of things, and that obviously helps a lot when you have to get in touch with that softer side of yourself as an artist. You have to be vulnerable, you have to be able to be empathetic, put yourself in someone else's shoes right from that space. So that inspired my songwriting a lot, you know. And I didn't necessarily realize that until I had those moments where I'd reflect and be like, okay, where is this coming from, really, you know?
100%. I couldn't relate to that more. My mom's number one lesson to me was always, it doesn't matter who you are or what you are outside, it's always about who you are in your heart.
Right.
And
right.
my dad's biggest lesson was always discipline.
Right.
Discipline,
right.
Wake up in the morning, get your work done. You gotta really grind to get where you want to be, and I think that's an amazing quality. I also think it's a quality that a lot of auto people in, you know, this generation, this younger generation, have in themselves, where, you know, they have that, you know, hard-headed, let's get it done drive from their dad's side, and they have that, you know, emotional touch from their mother, you know, that keeps them a little softer and keeps them grounded.
Right.
Moving on to, you know, your experiences in really, you know, growing as an artist, you had some phenomenal opportunities. I believe you opened for Bruno Mars in Abu Dhabi as well.
Yeah.
You opened for Post Malone. What were those experiences like? What was it like performing in front of thousands of people? Like, I couldn't even imagine.
It's honestly, it's a great moment. I could see the gradual sort of, you know, I had performed shows in Montreal in Canada where there was one or two people in the audience, you know, and sometimes they left and there was no one. And then to move from that to, you know, performing in front of like 14, 15,000 plus people, opening for the Backstreet Boys, I think was the biggest turnout.
Right, yes.
And yeah, it's just incredible.
Did you get to meet them?
I got to meet AJ backstage.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was great because he heard my set. He even heard me like doing like the warm-ups and sound checks beforehand. So, and he was like, "Yeah, you've got a great set and nice voice and all that." And to hear that from him was really cool. But most of the time, you are in separate trailers than the main acts, and that's, you know, kind of normal.
Typical, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, each concert has its own sort of beautiful atmosphere, beautiful, you know, everyone's there just for a great time, and you get to see like what's interesting is like the demographic of each artist, you know.
It's a little different, no?
Yeah, it's completely different. And Backstreet Boys, you had like generations, like families there with their kids and their grandparents. And that's first time I've seen that in a show. And yeah, Post Malone had like a younger crowd. Guns N' Roses had a very, you know, rock and roll.
Right, Guns N' Roses, you have a really good resume, mashallah.
No, thanks, man. I think, you know, just building good relationships and being, you know, professional. They call you back for these things because they know what they're going to get. They know what sort of artist you are. You know, I'm someone who consistently puts out new music and good performances.
100%.
And I pride myself on that because this is, you know, my work at the end of the day, and it's my my portfolio and what I kind of bring to the table. So,
So when you get on that stage in front of thousands of people, the first time you did it, who were you opening for?
the first, I think, big act, I can't remember really if it was Calvin Harris or Katy Perry.
You're name dropping like crazy right now.
Yeah, no, I can't remember. Katy Perry was New Year's. I think it was Calvin Harris just before that.
That, like when you step onto that stage for the first time, right? And like, I know my dream, right, is to be able to elevate, different shows or be able to do different things and, hopefully grow an audience. And when you get to finally step onto that stage, what's the feeling, when you see these thousands of people and, you're about to perform in front of them? Are you like in your head, like, wow, I made it?
Yeah, there is a sense where it's like everything I've experienced has led up to this moment, And for me, I remember I got a really good piece of advice from Red One, who's a great, producer who's done things for Lady Gaga and many more. And he told me at the time I had showed him an original song of mine. It was when I had only released one song. I met him really early in my career. And he told me, he's like, go and perform as much as you can. He's like, just perform. Any sort of gig you can take, just go and perform. You have to be really, really good live for people to take notice of you. And that piece of advice stuck with me. And I was doing 3, sometimes 4 shows a week at one point. Wow. And performing became so second nature and so like easy for me that by the time I had an opportunity like this, like they always say, success is where preparation and opportunity, meet, right? And so it really rings true because I was there in that moment, and you realize like when there's a sea of people, you're almost in your own bubble and you have so much control on that stage and everyone's there to support you, and yeah, the nerves drop, you're in your zone, you know what you're there to do. And obviously at places like this, you're showcasing your original songs, so it's a great platform, and what better place for you to kind of, introduce yourself to a new audience than on a big stage like that. So it's a great experience, and I hope everyone gets to, experience that. Before
we kind of wrap up, I think that's, an amazing experience that, mashallah, you've been able to, kind of get to that point where, you're performing in front of thousands of people. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, where do you see your career in 5 years? Where do you want yourself to be? Who does Danny Aridi want his legacy to be, So for me, if I had told you that I plan on performing at the Do Arena or performing at the Dubai Community City Amphitheater, open for this artist, that person, the truth is, I had no idea I was going to do that. I just put my head down, got to work, focused on doing certain things, and then opportunities came. So I love to be ambitious and I love to set goals, but I also think it is limiting if you say like, I want to perform at this venue or reach that and do that, because you get in a tunnel vision, and if you don't achieve that, you might think it's a failure, but maybe there was another opportunity here, but you're so focused on this that you don't see that one coming. 100%. So that's the kind of mentality that I keep. I like to keep plans like 2 weeks ahead. Very political answer. Because but it's the
I
truth.
like it. It's a great answer. I might die tomorrow. I might drop dead now. Like you never know when your last breath is. 100%. So for me, I like to plan, but I don't like to get too ahead because I might be missing out on other things, and that comes from experience. That comes from previous, upsets or opportunities that came when I had not even noticed. So my answer to this question is always, I want to share my music with the world, produce great stuff, come out with great content, music videos that spark sort of sentimental emotions and things, and people have great performances. And wherever that road takes me, I'm happy with it.
That's beautiful.
You know, yeah.
Before we get going and before we, say goodbye, do you want to announce? Do you have any projects you want to announce? Any socials you want to shout out?
Sure.
Where everybody can see where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me at Danny Aridi on Instagram, and listen to me on all streaming platforms, Spotify and Rami. Got music videos on YouTube as well. Apple Music, everywhere really where music is played, you can find me there. And I've got a new song coming out hopefully in the next month or so. So stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned, guys. This has been Danny Aridi. I hope everybody has enjoyed this episode, and I really appreciate you again for coming onto the show. It really means a lot to me.
My pleasure.
And I hope this won't be the last time I see you. Hopefully, and I hope everybody can go check out Danny's music. It's really phenomenal, and it's really I think like you said, you try to make music that moves people's emotions. And I think that's the main purpose of music in itself. I think it's trying to affect people and trying to move people and trying to make them feel something. And I think that's something you do an amazing job with your music. So everybody should really go check it out. And thank you for coming on to Yellow Lines. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. But before we end this, let's get back to the song.
So this is my original song called Wasted. You're the last thought that I have at night, and the first one in the morning. You're the storm in all my dreams that's rise, and the pillow that I'm holding. Well, every time you walk in the room, something just takes over. 'Cause my heart works overtime, my blood turns dark as wine. You must be on my mind, 'cause my head starts spinning, my face starts grinning. I'm wasted on the thought of you tonight. Oh, I'm wasted on the thought of you tonight. You're the only thing that gets me high, my starlight on the darkest night. If I opened up and spilled it all, would you catch my heart or watch me fall? 'Cause every time you walk in the room, something just takes over. 'Cause my heart works overtime, my blood turns dark as wine. You must be on my mind, 'cause my head starts spinning, my face starts grinning. I'm wasted on the thought of you tonight. Oh, I'm wasted on the thought of you tonight.
Goddamn, I got goosebumps, man.